Hello everyone, and welcome to the ultimate money making guide for Elder Scrolls Online. In this guide I'll explain every single important aspect of trading, as in buying and selling items to help you earn millions of gold every single week at little to no effort. In the description I've broken the guide into sections just in case you want to skip through. I understand it will probably be quite a long video, there's a lot of explaining to do, but if you do want to make the most of the opportunity, I would suggest watching the whole way through. You're only going to have to watch it once, and in the end that's really going to help you out to earn a lot of money. So if you really want to make the most of it, watch the whole way, but I'm not going to force you. There's a few things you're going to need. Firstly, you're going to need a great trading guild. That will depend on what platform you're on. So for PCU, your best area is hands down Craglorn. I run a guild myself, the Traveler Merchant, so if you do want an invite to that, my ID is in the description below. But many of you are probably already in there, so you will be fine. Yeah, just send me a message and I don't mind to invite you. For PCNA, I believe the best traders are in Reaper's March. And for console, you're probably looking at your undaunted areas, so Gratwood, Stormhaven and Deschamps. Now, if you're on PC, there is one really important add-on, that is Master Merchant. That is going to help you a ton in doing this. I will show you some clips where it's kind of explained. But what that does is it basically shows you the average price of an item. So we go here, there you go, you can see all the sales, you can see the graph spread of what sort of sale price are. It's very, very useful. I understand that on console you obviously won't have this. What that's going to mean is it's going to mean it's harder to do, but on the other hand there's less people doing it and the margins are going to be better, so you're going to make a lot more money if you can get used to it. How you want to go about that is you need to learn the actual price of the items from what they're selling for in your main store. Get used to those prices and then just find them cheaper and memorize them or write them down, whatever works best for you. Now you may notice in some of the clips I go through things quite fast. There's a lot of complicated maths in some parts, there's a lot of interesting principles for some parts. I'll do my best to explain it slowly, but if I do go too fast you can ask me anything in the chat. When I'm actually moving through the trade window, don't be pressured to move through guilds as fast as I do. I've done this for a very long time, I'm very used to it. It may take you, I don't know, 5-10 minutes to do one store when you're at the very start, but I can probably do every single store in about half an hour, 20 minutes, and that will normally be equivalent to like 300-400k profit. Depends how the day is going, but you can make really a lot. Anyway guys, I'm going to move into video. Like I said, it's all broken down in the description, so make sure you check that if you want to skip through sections or if you want to go over something again in a second. So we're going to start this off because I did find a store before I started recording just now that has something cheap, just to speed this up. So we're going to go to our store. This is in Cold Harbor, Redford Exchange. We're going to filter on here and we're going to search by time left. We're only looking at ones at 30 days left because they are recently listed items. They're less likely to have been looked at. We're going to scroll past all this rubbish. This mercenary is cheap. It's obviously 100 gold. You could get like 300, but it's kind of shit to sell. We're going to avoid that. This one, as you can see, is underpriced. It's 26% under 12k. But again, if you look at the graph just to the left of this over there, with our Master Merchant add-on, that is your main key. By the way, Master Merchant is how you're going to see all these prices. If you don't have that, such as a console player, you're going to have to start to learn prices manually. So look in the really major cities. Anyway, so we're going to skip this one because it's not really enough margin. The motives can have quite varied prices. They're generally something I avoid unless they're really cheap. We're going to keep scrolling down, we're going to keep scrolling down. As you can see, now this comes up, but then we see this 36% under for cornflower. There's tons of sales on that graph. It sells very good. We're buying them for 8k. They're actually worth about, if we look at this graph, so they are 87 each year, 100 for 8.7k. The real price is 136, which means that for these total it would be 13.6k. Buying those, we have just made 5k profit once they sell. And I'll come on to the selling part in a sec. We're going to keep looking through here, and here's another interesting one. So V14 materials. This is a market that's a little different. So if you are in a guild that is in the major city, such as Craglorn, what can happen a lot is prices can fluctuate due to manipulation. I'm one of the people who can manipulate a market quite a lot because of the amount of money I have. So when we look at this, in most locations the price that it is for here is actually the right price. But in Cold Harbor, it's actually a slightly lower average price to Craglorn, so it's 27%. You can pick up a lot of these and sell them for a pretty good price. This is something worth buying. Even though it's just a few, you could buy a lot more. Anyway, we're going to keep scrolling through it a little more. Still on 30 days, nothing showing up cheap here. We can obviously just look at the percentage to remember. And then we've hit 29 days. all of this is recently listed, it would have already been looked at. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go on to locations of the main traders. I will get some more clips of finding some decent prices as we go, but I think it's worthwhile quickly explaining because some people may not know where the main traders are. So I normally start at 8 and just work down to Rofgar, so in alphabetical order. Now obviously if you're German or you're on a different client such that like another language, they may be in a different order, but it really doesn't matter what order we're doing in as long as we're visiting them all, taking our time and making sure we're picking up everything cheap to list on for a good price in a store such as Traveller Merchant in Craiglang. So, Alakir, these are in this town here. At this way shrine, just go north. Oradon are in this town here, just to the west in here. Bankarai, again, this one here. So this way shrine, that's Eastern Evermore, and they're just slightly to the northwest. Cold Harbour, they're dead on this shrine. You can see them instantly, so it's quite a nice spot. Craiglang, this is your main city for selling, but you can also buy here. Port to this shrine here, Belcarve, and they're just slightly out of the town over here. The Shan, they're really obvious. When you port to that shrine, they're all around you. Eastmarch, you're going to port to this one, they're straight ahead of you over here. Glenumbra, you're going to port to this shrine here, they're just down some stairs to the left. Grotwood, you're going to port to here, you're going to exit from the south exit, I believe. It's either the south or the west, but there's some to it over here. Greenshade, these ones are less obvious. I don't always check these, it's not a great spot, but if you port to this shrine here, go around and up the stairs, there's somewhere about here. Hughes Painter, if you do have the DLC, they're just over the dock, they're this island here. Malleable Tor, you port to this spot, they're quite obvious from that shrine. It's just less obvious to come here, as you expect this to be the main town, but it isn't, it is this spot here. Reaper's March, this is a great spot to buy from, there's often a lot of good stuff. There's this shrine here. Riven Spire, you want to come to here, it's quite a long ride, they're all the way at the south of the town over here. Some of them are downstairs, so if you want to make sure you get them all. Shadowfen, you port into this shrine, and there's a little ring of them around here, in the centre of the town. Stonefalls, you're going to port to this, they're really obvious around the centre. Stormhaven, these are another great trader spot. Port to this shrine here, you're going to see one of them straight ahead, they're all around there. Then we've got Rift. Rift, you're going to port to this shrine, cross the water, and you're going to see 5 or 6 of them over here. And finally, at Rofgar, you're going to port to this shrine, or this shrine, and they're just out of the north side of the town. Okay, so I found a really another interesting example here when we're getting into trading. So, normally when I'm buying an item, if it's something that's not too often traded, I'm looking at a margin of like 22-25% plus, so a big margin. And again, Master Merchant will show that. But if you are on the consoles, you need to learn the prices. So look for your stores, maybe even want to write it down on a day-to-day basis, just to get what the normal price is so you know something's cheap. Then write that down and use that as your example. The thing to remember if you are on console, by the way, is that the prices are probably going to be quite different, okay? What I mean by that is your buy price and your sell price are probably quite a big margin, since no one has add-ons to guide them. Far less people are going to do this. You can make really big profit, it's just harder to do. So if you can really spend time learning the prices, you can make so much every single day. Like doing what I do now, I make about 5 to, I don't know, anywhere between 3 and 5 mil profit a week. All the wax and stuff you saw in the very intro of this, that was all this week and since Monday, since that's when the traders flipped. So like 11 days, it's, I don't know, 12 mil worth of materials. It's a lot. But anyway, as I was saying, so most items we're going to take 22 or 25%, but there are some items, a very limited portion, where we can take a bigger margin. And let's scroll down and we see this Columbine, 14%. Now you're thinking that is shit all. It's not even green because it's such a little margin. The tax from the guild is 8%, 3.5% goes to the guild bank, 4.5% just disappears into the ethos. That leaves us 6%, which is next to nothing. But this is an item that sells just so good. If we look at that graph, it is smothered in sales. This is a major flower as well. It goes even faster. You can always get a minimum of the master merchant price. Sometimes you can even get more. So actually, even though this seems low, we can even push more, and it sells so good. So this is another item we're going to buy, even though it is far less obvious that it's worth buying. Here we go. So a gold material, 1.2k for a rosin. So 1.7k for rosin, it's worth like 1.9k. It's barely any profit, but you can sell them so easily. You can sell hundreds of these every day. We're going to take it even though it's a tiny profit. Because they stack, they're easily bought, and it's still a profit technically. Keep scrolling through here. Now a blue recipe. So this is something if you're poor it would probably be worth buying. There's a lot of stable sales between like 500, 700. It starts at 300. It's something I'm not going to touch, but if you are someone who's watching this and you're starting on a low bankroll, then sure, you can go for it. There's no reason to not buy cheaper items to sell for more. Okay, so I found a really good example now. Raw materials. These are obviously super cheap. You can see that. What you need to try and think about raw materials is the value per gold material. Now, per stack of raw materials, you are going to get approximately one gold material of that type. So clothing, you'll get drill wax. Woodworking, you'll get rosining. Metal, you will get tempering alloy. And you will get 1.5 purple materials. That is on average. Do not try to think about the short term. You're going to keep buying, and in the long term, you're going to reach your averages. But these are obviously super cheap. So if we work out the price per stack, it's 400 for 50. That makes it 1.6k for 200, which is one drow wax. A drow wax is worth 5.8k. So that is 4k profit, even before we continue the purple once we buy all of those. Say it was a closer price, and I'm sure I'll find one later in the video. Say it was a closer price, you have to consider it. Generally what I work on the principle of is if the stack is the same price as the gold material, it is worth buying. And the logic behind that is because you're going to sell the refined materials just generally in a normal store, like you're just going to vendor them. That's 800 gold you're going to get back, so it's still 800 profit. But if it's not close to the gold material price, I tend to leave it. Like there's some fluctuation there, it's not always worth it. Here we go, we got some cheap raw materials. This will be 5k for a stack, so 250 for 10. That makes 500 for 20, which makes 5k for 200, which is our gold mat. So 5k for a gold mat minus 800 for the stack we're going to vendor. That's 4.2k for drow wax. So always work out the price. You might not do the maths as quick as me. You probably won't search the store as quick as me. It's just getting a knack for it, so don't feel pressured on time. These ones are really close, so 2.8k for 100, that's 5.6k for 200. A drow wax is 5.8k, so when we vend it, it's still that profit. Remember what I said, work out the price of a stack, work out the price of the wax, take away 800 for the material you're going to vendor. This is still worth buying, even though it's red on the graph. They're actually a profit. We're going to pick those up. I did forget to mention earlier, there's a lot of items to avoid, so shit like this looks underpriced. If you're a cheaper player, if you don't have that much money, you look at that and you think, fucking hell, 70% under. It is junk. Nobody is going to buy that. It's got one sale, I don't even know why. It's a useless item. These items can often pick people up. They don't really think about what they're buying. They just see it underpriced and buy it. You gotta think. If it's not got a use, it's not going to sell. Only buy things that have a genuine demand. Okay, so I'll keep this section pretty brief, but this is all about markets that can change, and at the same time the clip also shows absolute bargains. So one market that recently changed is the demand for footmen, and as you can see here we've got these boots. They are incredibly cheap, so we're going to pick those up. You've just got to keep aware of markets that are changing, but obviously this price is super cheap, so you're going to notice it pretty quick. You should buy it. Some of them may be less obvious, they may not even have any data, but this one is one we're going to pick up, so we're going to grab those now. I am recording this as I go, so there we go. Okay, so this is where we're going to get into a bit more of a complicated market approach, which is market control. This is talking me over the clip right now, so I'd already recorded this without any sound. But what you will notice is I'm now talking to my officers in the guild, and this is something that can happen quite a lot behind the scenes, which is manipulating a market, which I did discuss earlier about the wood, but it can also happen to other items such as this motive, which are just not easily found and easily controlled. These are markets you really want to look out for, because if you can get in on the control, talk to the right people, or better still just join it, you can make a lot. We're going to buy that, but these are markets to really pay attention to. It's a little more complex to be noticing, but it's incredibly good profit if you can get on the inside. Okay, so this is probably the final section. Apart from a couple of warnings, a couple of important bits of information, this is about what we call invisible markets, and this is a lot more complicated, a lot harder to spot, but basically some items have such limited volume because of rarity that you will not notice it. And you will notice one of the items that I'm currently selling right here is Signal of the Warlock V12, which I found the other day for 1k. Unfortunately I didn't get that clip, it didn't save properly, but either way we can still see that here it shows no price. Everything else will show a price, but this has no trades in any major guild store because it is so rare. The ones that generally have this are, off the top of my head, Dragon Shoulders, Claw of the Dragon, which is the sword, V12, both of those. Sunstaff, V12, Sun Shoulders, V12. Signal of the Warlock, V12. And then some things where the quality has changed, so maybe they've changed purple to gold or blue to purple or something. Those may not register. But your main ones are these old V12 gears. I can't think of any V16s straight away, but these are markets really worth looking for because these can be absolute gems if you can find them. Like I said, this was bought for 1k, it is listed at 300. It will take some time to sell. These are rare markets and they're not that useful. But some people buy it to collect, some people are more interested in it for the actual use. It's still not a terrible set even though it is V12. Especially when the next patch hits, it could actually be very useful to some newer players. But it is a market you really need to pay attention to, because if you can keep aware of these items that may not register normally, you can make serious money. These are probably your highest profit single items. Market control is probably your best way of making money overall. If you combine everything, that's your best total money. That is definitely what I do. I get involved in all the markets because that's the best trading. But if you can spot items like this, you can make the best money. Okay, so this is going to be the final section. This is all about sales. I will put some warnings within this section that you should really pay attention to. It's very important that you listen to. But I'm going to cover all of the different types of sales. So the first type of sale, which I did mention, is your fast movers. So things that are going to shift very quickly. And the ones I mentioned are flowers. And I did say V14 materials. It's also true of V16 materials. I don't know if I'll list those, but certainly I will list these ones. So how we go about selling is we do as follows. We click on the browse and we filter to the specific item. So for this it will be crafting, alchemy, reagent. We'll sort, and then we will sort by price. Now if we look at the price of these are roughly 50 each, give or take 45 to 50, okay? Which means a stack is about 10k. So we can skip through this. We would have seen all the cheap ones already until we're around that price. And here we go. So we're at the 10k mark, and we're going to see if anyone else has them listed. In the case of fast movers, that's very rare. Because they sell so fast generally, we can pretty much demand what we like. So what I would generally suggest is round up or down for a nice each price. So for these, 50 each is fine, even though it's a little above. They will sell. We're going to stick them in for 10k for 200. This will go easy. Marker number 2 is what I would call slow movers. Now I don't really mention these in buying because it's something you just generally see as blatantly cheap, and this is one example. These just have very little demand since they give absolute crap, but what we can have with these is we can control the price a lot, so we generally stick them in a little undercutty. There's going to be none in store. I'm not even going to bother looking because there won't be any in store, but what we need to do with these is we need to make it cheap enough to attract someone in. So if we pop those in, they're 60 each and it shows us 50 on the graph. We just need to make sure we're under that price, which would be 3k. So we're going to stick them in at like 2,850. That will show up as a price worth buying for some people. They'll pick it up. It's their problem then, and they will buy those. Number 3 is the low roll item. So we have one here. This is something you can pick up all the time, low level warlock rings. There's going to be none in store again, and it's a price we can pretty much demand anything for, so it's quite similar to those limited price items. You obviously don't want to push it too high since it's mainly for newer players, so what I would generally advise for this particular item is, I don't know, 2 to 4k. With blue recipes, anything around 3 to 5k, unless it's a really rare one. Sometimes you can get up to 10. And then green recipes you could probably push 2 to 3k with, but there's obviously tons of other things I haven't mentioned. You need to try think to yourself, what do I reckon I can actually realistically get for this? But we're going to pop that in. That will sell. It will take some time. I've already mentioned fast movers, so we're not going to bother with these. We've got 2 slots left at the moment. It's always important to keep 30 listed. So we're going to move on to our ordinary markets. This is one of those. Now these are relatively fast moving. I actually do push north, but what we would normally do with these is undercut. So how we're going to do that is as follows. We're going to search by crafting, blacksmithing, armor traits, and set what it is. If it was gear, we would then go apparel. Say it was light armor 16, we'd type in 16s, make sure we set it to veteran. We'd pick the particular piece and the particular trait. So let's say divines, say we're looking for lich, so we go divines, this, and we'd go down and we'd go to the cheapest one and we'd try to find that to undercut. So say we go rubber the worm, and this was the only one in there, we would then list it a little lower than that. Now that does seem like a dick move, but that's how we do it. So if we do it for this particular example, crafting, blacksmithing, armor trait, get rid of those, and we're going to search, and we're going to see what the price is. So here we go. 4.9k is the cheapest. So if you were going to list these in ones, this is 4997, you would list it for like 4990. I know that's a dick move, but that is how you're going to sell quick, because in the end the cheapest sells first. There are obviously some issues with that. If it is someone you know is an active trader, I would suggest just matching their price. It's not worth the tension to undercut people too badly. If it's someone who really watches the market properly, and I'll get onto that in a second, how you can watch it properly, then just go for it. But yeah, since this is in for 4.997, we're going to list them like 4.9 each. We've got 5 of them. We're just going to list them as a stack. So we're going to do 4.9 times 5 equals, we get a price of 24,500. So we're going to list that for 24,500. We're going to list them as a 5 because it doesn't make much difference, and there we'll go. It's exactly the same for these row. This is the same sort of market. So we're going to go crafting, provisioning, ingredient, gold. We're filtering as many times as we can till I miss it. We see it's at 11k. That's a bit high. It's too high both master merchant. It says 10.4, so we're just going to list these at 10.5. So although it looks like we could undercut this with 11,100, something like that, to get the lowest price, as I've explained before, we're not going to do that. The price here is too high. These are unlikely to sell too easy. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to list them about 10.5k each for 3 of them. So we're going to do that right now. 10.5 times 3, which would give us 31.5. We're going to type that in, and those will sell after a few days. Okay, this is the important bit. Relisting is essential. If items aren't selling after 3-4 days, some of them like the rare ones, so such as this, after a week, maybe more, you need to do a relisting. And what that would be is I would cancel all of these items out and check each of them in turn to see if anyone is undercutting them, because if they are, yours is not going to sell. Like I said, only the cheapest is going to sell. You need to relist regularly. If you don't do that, you are not going to get as many sales as you should. So relist every 2 to 3 days is what I do. If you're a lot less active, every week should be fine. Some items obviously do take longer. Some of them have quite high price variance. But the more you relist, the more likely you are to get the sales. Okay, so the final little bit I mention is a couple of warnings. The firstly is some guilds can cause a lot of problems, so there's a number of them in the game to generally avoid. I'm not going to name names, but what they will generally do is they will generally try and recruit you by messaging you directly. Why they do this is they're trying to abuse you as a trader. They're trying to gain extra taxation from you. They'll put extra punishments on you. They'll try and use you because they know you're selling great to manipulate their guild to their advantage. They will probably put extra taxes on you. They will do all sorts of shit. So do not go to someone who's actively trying to recruit you. Your best bet is to go to a location, think, okay, this spot looks great. So I've mentioned that at the very start, which spots to go for. For Craglorn, EU, you're generally looking at Javelin Merchant, which is one here, and a Furious Trade are great. If you're after a back row Just Traders, it's also pretty good. There's some Russian one, Edja Matazi, I don't know the name, but generally if you need to, Javelin Merchant and Furious are the way to go. You want to avoid any single guild who is messaging you directly to join, because those are guilds with problems. They're ones you do not want to mess with. They're horrific people leading them. They will manipulate you. So go for what is working. I hope this guide has been useful. We've covered absolutely everything. It is a huge video. If you have made it to the end, great job. If you have only listened to the sales part, you probably should pay attention to some of the buying part. At least skip through briefly. You don't have to watch the whole example. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys. I hope the guide was useful. Happy trading.